My name is Julie, and today I'm going to go through 8 small sales page tweaks anyone can do right now to increase your conversions and your ROI. My goal for this presentation is that by the time we're done hanging out today, you're going to have a list of 8 things that you can go do immediately without hiring some tech person or some amazing designer or copywriter, and you're going to see an immediate change in your conversion and your return on investment, especially if you're doing paid media. So before we start, I just want to lay a few ground rules. How many of you, show of hands, have something selling right now that uses a sales page? It can be a long sales page, it can be a short sales page, it can be a digital product, it can be a physical product, it can be a service. And along the bottom of your screen, you will see that there are a ton of niches and industries that this works for. These are just a few of the industries that I've actually tested these tweaks on, from parenting, health, sewing, perfume, belly dancing, coding, Amazon. You can see them all running about the bottom of your screen. And this really works for any industry that you can think of. So a little bit about me, why you should hang out with me for the next 45 minutes, why you should trust that I actually have some really good tips. I am a writer, a marketer. I'm a mom of 4, most importantly. I've helped over 9,000 business owners with their funnels. I want to just tell you briefly how I got to where I am. I am the co-founder of Funnel Gorgeous. My gorgeous partner with rainbow hair, Kathy Olson, helps me in the Funnel Gorgeous brand. It is our baby and we love it. But I have been around the block since 2012. So I've done over $7 million in sales since 2017, but the road to get there was not the easiest. And so if you're here and you're watching and you have that product and that sales page out in the market and it's not selling yet, don't despair. I actually got started way back in 2007 blogging. That's how I entered the space. I was a mom of 3 small children and completely losing my mind, if I'm being totally honest. And so I started blogging as a way to just have an outlet to the world. And so for 5 years, I wrote daily on my blog about all the, ridiculous things that happen when you're a stay-at-home mom. And in 2012, they all went off to school. And I had this little mini crisis of like, well, what am I going to do with my life? And since I had been writing and designing on WordPress, I decided to go into web design. And I did that for about 2 years, loved it, had fun, really honed my design skills, honed my writing skills. And it was all working great until my whole world fell apart in 2014. I was, like I said, I had been a stay-at-home mom. And in 2014, my husband and I decided to get divorced. For the first time, I felt afraid that I wouldn't know how to take care of myself. I had literally gotten married out of college at age 21, and I'd never been an adult on my own. And now I was an adult with 3 kids. And to make matters worse, in about 4 weeks after I filed for divorce, I found out I was pregnant with a 4th child. And this was just like insanity on top of bananas. And so I, at that moment, realized that I had to take my skills of writing and design and I had to transform them into something that would actually support me and my children. And so that's really what propelled me into the marketing space, where I knew I could start to charge more. I became a funnel designer, a funnel builder. I discovered people like Russell Brunson and Ryan Deiss and others in that time. And I began building funnels. And once I cracked the code and figured out how to help other people make millions of dollars with their funnels, I set out to do my own. And so that is sort of a little bit of a background. I have been building funnels and I have been coaching people and teaching people on funnels. So I've got a treasure trove of experience on which to draw from. These 8 tweaks will work. They are tried and tested and true. So I hope that just kind of gives you a little bit of background that no matter where you are in your journey, you can. It's just, there's going to be that moment in time where things aren't working and then they are going to work. And I'm going to just tell you a bunch of stories along the way. All right. So a couple best practices before we launch into those 8 tweaks. First, when tweaking a sales page, you really want to focus on one tweak at a time. If you do too many at once, you're not going to know which was the one that made difference. It's like we need to really tap into sort of our scientific method from 6th grade. And we need to focus on one core tweak at a time. Now, you can do one tweak in a section, like, if you're going to add a period or a sentence to your sales page, you can do a few other things, but really just focus on one section at a time. The second best practice that I would say is that you want to optimize the very, very top of the page, which is above the scroll, and you want to optimize the very bottom of the page and then work in the middle, because most people are skimmers. They're going to see the top. 100% of your leads are going to see the top of your sales page. And a lot of them are going to see the bottom, especially if you have a call to action button at the top. Less people are going to pay attention to the middle. So you want to consolidate your tweaks in the top and bottom first. The third best practice is record every change. This is incredibly important. In fact, Jennifer Sabel, who's over here on the right, she launched a belly dance program. It was a $27 program. And when she launched this digital program, it made a little bit of money. It didn't make a lot. And I remember she messaged me and said, Julie, I'm going to make it so that this funnel makes me $20,000 a month in passive income. And I tried to sort of mitigate her expectations, because I was like, yeah, this is a front end funnel, like this may not quite make you that much money. And she said, no, I'm going to stick with it. And she optimized and tweaked and recorded every single solitary change. And she celebrated them all. So if she went 0.1%, if she went from 4.2 to 4.3, at scale, those numbers matter. And so you want to make sure that you're celebrating every little increase in conversion, because those will make a massive difference once you're running a lot of traffic. And she started to recognize that every 0.1% that she increased would translate to almost $200 or $300 a month in her pocket. And so once you make that equation, you'll start to be motivated to see these changes and how they work. Okay, so this is the basic structure and flow of a sales page. Now, if you are selling physical products, you're probably going to see this maybe switched around slightly or shortened. But if you are running a digital product or a course, this is pretty much how it works. You have an announcement area, what we call the above the scroll, with the headline. You introduce a problem, then you introduce the solution. You talk about why that solution is important and meaningful to their life. You build some rapport and some trust, and then you announce your offer. So this is one of those traditional sales pages where in the middle of the page, that's when you really are like, ta-da, this is my solution. And then you go through benefits and features, a guarantee, some scarcity, some urgency, some frequently asked questions, and closing. And these little red dots along here are basically indicating that you should be sprinkling out social proof like testimonials, call to action buttons, which allow them to actually go to checkout, and or the stack. And we'll talk about that. But this is the basic structure and flow. So when I go through the tweaks, I'm going to be referencing these different areas, and we are going to start obviously right up at the top, the most important spot. All right, so let's go to tweak number 1. So tweak number 1 is called the readable headline. Now, I am taking this from an actual client. She sells a course on how to sew. No, just kidding, you guys, wrong example. She teaches a workshop on how to get a great face of makeup before you take pictures. So here you can see the headline, how to finally master an everyday makeup look in just one afternoon, put an end to the guesswork, and get confident in your makeup routine once and for all. Now, the copy is good, you guys. The copy, this is traditional direct response copy. It's targeting problem-aware and solution-aware audience. It works great. The problem with this headline is that there's no visual way to communicate how someone should read it. Now, if I'm in front of you and I'm talking to you, right, you're going to see my hands move. You're going to hear the inflection of my voice go up. I may pause. I may whisper. I may shout. You don't get any of that when you're reading words on a page. So design is the way that you visually communicate how someone should read this. Now, this is readable on its own, but I want to show you what the after looks like and why this is so much better. This is actually going to create personality and emphasis where it needs to be. It's going to make the person want to read it. So a few things to notice about this. Wow, and I got to remember, you guys, I got to remember I have to tell. Okay, never mind. Just gonna write that down. Okay, so one thing about this is that it's annoying to read, right? So you have to read from left to right, all the way over. And then you have to, on the second line, it's like space, 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 afternoon, space, 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 right? It's not very balanced. And so when you do this, it's faster to read. So it's faster to read, faster to comprehend, and then faster to be like, oh, okay, I understand what she's saying. Now, by adding pink and bold to the word finally, I'm creating emphasis, right? How to finally master. And we added custom for you, which is in quotes, and that's sort of italicized. That's like an aside. How to finally master a custom for you everyday makeup look, ... which gives them a breath in just one afternoon, more emphasis. And you can see here that we also made the headline big and then we made the tagline smaller. That way we're telling the reader, read the first line and then read the second line. Now, the funny thing is that even if we put that tagline above the headline, if we keep the hierarchy the same in the font size, the person will still read the big headline and then the small headline. This is why it's so important to add design to your headlines to create readability. This will get like the person will comprehend this far faster than the first way. And that's why design is so important, because it allows a person to understand what they're reading and to put the emphasis correctly so that when they're reading it, they're not misinterpreting what you're trying to say. This is the single greatest spot where you can adjust and tweak. Now, here is kind of a crazy side note. There is another, and this is kind of just a cool thing. The conversion rate on her page went from 3% to 4.2%, which is an insane change when we removed one word. Does anyone want to guess which word we removed from this? And this is this is the sewing. This is not the makeup, but this is the fashion sewing skills. We removed one word and the conversion went from 3 to 4.2. So I'll give you 2 seconds to guess. Go ahead, put in the comments, what word did we remove? Okay, so I see we've got some people saying learn, master, fashion, very, the. Okay, here we go. This was the word we removed. Learn the sewing skills you need to make your very own clothes. Now, here's why we removed that word, because we know that there are certain words that have associations, right? When I say fashion, what do you associate that with? Now, if you love fashion, you associate it with like fun and shopping. If you're not very fashionable, if you're kind of homely, the word fashion is going to be incredibly intimidating. And so our theory was that people were not buying the program because they didn't consider themselves fashionable. It was not an identity that they had. And so we took out the word fashion and just said, learn the sewing skills you need to make your very own clothes. And it immediately caused a massive uptick in conversions. This is the power of creating readable headlines that communicate exactly what you want to communicate to that audience. Okay, so that's tweak number 1. Now, if that sounds like something you can do, let me know in the comments. So now we're going to move on to tweak number 2. Tweak number 2 is still at the top of the page. Now, there are 3 ways that we can add proof above the scroll. What this means is we want either a visual or written way to communicate I am trustworthy. So there's 3 ways you can do that. The first way is to do something like what Julia did on her Learn to Code, which is join 2,000 kids inside the Create and Code camp for a limited time. Visually, what's happening here and comprehension wise is she's communicating 2,000 other people think this is incredibly valuable. So you should too. It's right. It's like herd theory, it's peer pressure theory. So if you only have a limited number of space and you have a lot of people in your program, use this join over X number because that will create some visual proof right away at the top of the page. Now, the second way to do it is an as seen on banner. The best part about an as seen on banner is it doesn't take up a lot of space and it leverages the credibility of the actual, company or outlet that you are referencing. We call this credibility markers. Now, a little design sort of hack here is make sure if you're going to put these at the top of a page that you wash the color out. I've seen people do the as seen on banners at the top of their page and they leave all the colors of the original logos and it's just like circus at the top and it causes the eye to look at all of that and not anything else. So you can see here on this particular funnel, we took all of those logos. Those logos are actually black, but we washed them in like a gray color. And that way it blends really well with the branding on the page. Creates that credibility without distracting the reader. And that's important. The third way that you can add proof above the scroll, and this works really well if you don't have thousands of students and or you don't have any as seen on banners, would be with a strategic testimonial. Try to get that testimonial as close to the top of the page as possible above the scroll. And if you have a testimonial that has more than 3 or 4 lines, make sure you bold or highlight the line you want them to read first, because the eye will naturally read what's bolded and underlined. And that's also the line they're going to read, which is going to make them decide, hey, do I want to do all the work to read the whole thing? Okay, so that's really, really important. All right, so that's tweak number 2. Both tweak number 1 and tweak number 2 are happening at the top of the page. If you just did those 2 things, you would probably notice a conversion change if you were recording it. All right, so we are going to move on to tweak number 3. So tweak number 3 is called the almighty skimmer. And most people, the majority of people, skim pages, right? They're looking for visual cues to stop and read. And so you need to create visual cues all along the page that allow them to be like, ooh, wait, maybe I want to read more. So the best ways to address skimming are as follows. Number 1 would be bullets. Number 2 would be subheadlines. And number 3 would be all caps key phrases. So you're looking at a screenshot over here and the what's included, and you can see it's got the what's included, it's got the module, it's got the title, and then it's got the description, right? So now let's add bullets, subheadlines, and all caps key phrases, okay? So now you'll see it's a lot more readable, especially for the skimmer, because the skimmer is going to read the module name and possibly read the description right underneath. I don't think they're going to read that whole paragraph, but what they will do is immediately jump over to walk away with, and they'll read those bullet points. Now, an important note about bullet points. Whenever I tell people, oh, make sure you use bullet points, I find that people will take entire paragraphs and add a bullet in front of it. Nobody's fooled by that, okay? Like the paragraph that's trying to pretend that it's a bullet is just a wolf in sheep's clothing. Your bullets should never be more than 2 lines, okay? So, and even better if your bullets are just 1 line. If you have to make them 2, just make sure you give them enough space. But if you have a 3-line bullet, that's just a paragraph with a dot in front of it, okay? You're not really using it as a bullet. The other thing is that the all caps key phrases, you want to make sure that when you use all caps, that it is just 3 or 4 words. You do not want an entire title or an entire tagline in all caps. It's hard on the eye. And if you're not sure if people are going to skim and miss things, I would actually go through a page and figure out where you tend to read faster, because that's a sign that your eye is being lazy because it's not well designed. And remember, the design is there to help people comprehend. If I miss what's included in module 1, maybe that's the exact thing that I need to know that's going to tip me over the edge to buy, because it's exactly what I'm looking for. But if I don't see it because I'm skimming, I'm going to miss, and then I'm not going to buy. Okay. So that's tweak number 3, the almighty skimmer. Now this could really, really work anywhere on the page. You want to think, How do I talk to the skimmer here, especially where you have lots and lots of paragraphs? All right. Tweak number 4 is the marketing receipt. Now, this is traditionally known as the stack. Okay, that's a word I learned from Russell Brunson, and he talks about this sort of stack at the end of the page that shows them everything that's included in the offer. Okay, and that's super awesome. However, I have renamed it the marketing receipt. It's almost, you know how when you go to the store and you buy something and you get a receipt of everything you bought? This is a receipt that you get before you buy, right? So this is like the marketing receipt. And it helps them just crystallize everything that's included in the offer so that they can visually and quickly see, okay, do I want this? Now, a couple things about your marketing receipt. I actually really like it. Now, design wise, it's nice when there's some sort of border or color or something that kind of creates it so it looks like a section. It almost looks like a receipt. And it's a visual way to say, this is all you need to pay attention to, and helps people focus on what the offer is. So when you create your marketing receipt, make sure that you have these 4 things included. You want to have a visual graphic of some kind, especially if this is a digital product, really important. Obviously, if it's a physical product, you want the product shot right there. You want to make sure that the features and the values are included. So what it would cost if they bought everything separately. Now, if you're listening to this and you're like, well, gosh, I only have one thing, this is a sign that you need probably some bonuses and a better offer, because you want to have a marketing receipt that feels super fat and juicy, right? And like, oh my gosh, look at all this crazy, awesome stuff I'm getting. So you want to put the value of what it would cost if they bought it all separately. The deal. This is really important. You want to make sure that they see that somehow it's a deal. So whether you have a strike through, I've seen funnels where they have like a coupon code that says an automatically applied coupon. That would be really important. So whatever you can do to show the deal, right? That's important to have in the marketing receipt. And then the last thing you want is a CTA in button. CTA stands for call to action. And it's a simple like, what are you going to do next? The most important thing I can say about the marketing receipt is once you're on the sales page and you've announced the offer, I want you to have that receipt in a few places and make sure it is the last section of the sales page. That way, when they scroll down, they will 100% see that marketing receipt before they decide whether or not they're going to buy. Just a little side note, you want to make sure that the credit card icons are underneath that button. That's a visual signal that they are about to check out. So if you have buttons on the page that don't lead to the cart, that's fine. You can use them however you want, but every single button that's inside the marketing receipt should always have a credit card icon to signal to the reader, hey, this is where you're about to check out. Okay, so far, have you found that through one of these 4 tweaks, there's at least 1 to 4 things that you can go do on your sales page? I hope so. Let me know in the comments if you have any of them or all of them. And we'll go on to tweak number 5. All right, so tweak number 5 is called the micro yes call to action. Now, what we were talking about with these buttons, when you have a sales page, the longer the sales page is, you want to make sure there are buttons that lead to shortcuts, kind of like the game Chutes and Ladders. You know, maybe they're reading about the problem and there's enough there and people are like, okay, I'm ready to buy. You want a button that when they click it, it scrolls all the way down to the bottom of the page. It shows them that marketing receipt and they are ready to buy. So you want to create all of these sort of call to actions along the page. Now, the reason why we call them micro yeses is because we want to use copy that matches where they are in the story of the page. So I grabbed this page. This is a client, Ashley. She actually teaches parents how to do chores, like how to give their kids chores without complaining, which is amazing. And everybody should, who has kids should buy it. But you can see here that this particular testimonial, she's talking about how in this part of the copy, she's saying, I'm amazed at Ashley's ability to keep her children on task. And, you know, Ashley has 10 children. So this is pretty awesome. And she says, there's no one I would recommend more highly for advice on running a home with children both smoothly and cheerfully. So here you can see the button. It says, I want in, and that's awesome. But what if the actual button matched where they are in the story? So here is a difference that the way you could do it. You could say, yes, I need a smooth and cheerful home, because if they're in that part of the copy reading that testimonial and they're like, yeah, I need that. Right here is a button that says commit to this, micro commit to this. Yes, I need a smooth and cheerful home. And so that allows you to use conversational copy, very strong, psychologically persuasive copy that encourages them to make that small yes commitment, that nod as they're reading, that leads them to checkout. Okay, so go through your buttons and find out where you can add these micro yes call to actions. Okay, all right, now we're going to move on to tweak number 6. Now, tweak number 6 is called the price expectation game. And this is sort of a game that you can play with yourself. And I came up with this game because I noticed this problem in my community. People would put out a course, let's just say it's $100 course, and they would sell it. And then people would join the program. They'd get tremendous value out of the program. And they'd go to the course creator and say, oh my God, this program is amazing. It is worth so much more than $100. Like, this is crazy. And so the course creator, who is like, oh, wow, thank you so much. Like, I'm glad, decides, well, crap, I undercharged, I underpriced. And then they go and they raise the price to what all of their loyal diehard fans are, $500, right? And they're like, okay, well, you guys said it was $10,000 worth of, $10,000 worth of value. So now I'm going to change the price to $500, right? And then all of a sudden it stops selling. What happened and why this is such a dangerous game? You need to play the price expectation game. So here's what you do. Take the price off of your sales page, make sure it's nowhere to be found, and go find 5 strangers on the street or on the internet, which is not hard to do. And what I want you to do is ask them and say, I want you to read this and I want you to tell me, what do you expect the price is going to be? And the more people you can do this with, the better. So then you're going to get your notes out and you're going to write down. Someone's going to be like, okay, I thought it was going to be $400. I thought it was going to be $200. I thought it was going to be $50. I thought it was going to be $300. And I thought it was going to be $600, right? Okay. So if your sales page is done right, that they're going to guess, right? And we're still talking about the person who sold it for 100 and sold it and then raised it to 500 and then ended up in trouble, right? What you want to do is you want to add up what everybody expected the price to be. So in this case, it's 4, 2, 3, 6, right? We're going to take an average of the 5 people. So the 5 people, it ended up being like $350. What you want to do is make sure that you are priced well below the expectation. And the reason is simple. It's going to create a dopamine rush. It's going to create a sense of like, oh, I found something so valuable. It's like discovering treasure. So you want people to say, oh, I expect the price to be about 300. Perfect. Okay. That means I'm priced right at 100. Now, if I read this and I'm like, oh, I expect it to be 300 and it ends up being 297, this is an example where you want the price to be lower than what they expect. And this will work when you notice that people get into the program and say, oh my God, that was so valuable. Like, I totally would have paid more. Well, yeah, you would have paid more now that you saw it, but your price expectation, I actually did it correctly. So this happens all the time with this program that we have, the offer queue. In fact, anybody who got a TNC ticket got access to this program. People say it all the time, oh, it's worth so much money. It's worth $500. And I'm like, yeah, that's great, but I'm never going to charge $500. I'm always going to charge lower than the price expectation game to get you in the door, to get you excited, because I guarantee you that if you do this right, people will be ready to buy the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So the next time someone says to you, you should charge more, if they're a customer, that does not necessarily mean you should listen to them. It probably means you won the price expectation game and you're actually in the right price range. Okay. Is that helpful for you guys? Okay. So we are going to move on to tweak number 7. Okay. Tweak number 7 is to not forget about those logical buyers. And the easiest way to build FAQs, which should be on everybody's page, but also this will help you write out the benefits of your program, is with the worry list trick. Okay, now I am a professional worrier. I think honestly, this is what makes me such a great marketer, is that I can always find the worst case scenario and then talk myself out of it. And so you have to get really good at this. And so the worry list trick is what we do when we're trying to figure out how to convince the logical buyers, not just the emotional buyers. Okay. So we're going to do this game. I'm worried that you're going to take off your hat as being, the seller, and you're going to be the customer, and you're going to be writing out all the worries that that customer has about the topic. Okay. Then you're going to think of, well, what's the opposite of the worry, right? I'm worried that I'm going to take this supplement and get a headache. The opposite is you're going to take this supplement and feel amazing, right? And what you can do is you can rewrite it both emotionally and logically. When you write it emotionally, you want to put it in the benefits section, which is in the middle of the page. And when you write it logically, you're going to put it in the FAQ, which is sort of towards the end of the page. So let me go ahead and show you an example on the next slide. So this is a Disney planning course. Someday we'll build this, but I love Disney World. And so I was thinking about creating a course called Once Upon a Magical Day. And so I went through the worry list, right? So here's a classic worry for anybody who's never been to Disney, or people who have been to Disney. They're going to be like, I'm worried that I'm going to stand in long lines and I won't have fun. That's the emotional worry. The logical version of that question would be, well, how much time am I going to spend each day waiting in line? Do you see how those are different? But you can hit them from both angles. So one way is in a benefits section, right? So I could do a bullet, an actual bullet, not a fake paragraph with a dot, and say, hey, you guys can enjoy Disney World without waiting in long lines so you can see more in less time, right? That's very emotional. Now, over in the FAQ section, I'm going to talk to that logical buyer, and I'm going to say, did you know that the average Disney visitor only gets about 5 rides in a day? And that's because people assume they should go in order of what they see as they enter the park. And then they end up waiting in line. But on average, students of my program are able to do 12 or more rides in a day, right? And so then I'm like, that's tripling your fun and memories. So now here, what I've done is I've logically crushed that objection versus the emotional. It's the same exact worry, but come at it from a different side. There are different parts of the page. But if you do this worry exercise, it'll really write your benefits and your FAQs for you. Okay. All right. And the last tweak number 8, this is the most important tweak of all. It is the king tweak. Tweak number 8 is that proof is king. Everything you do should move towards proof, more proof. Now, it's very, very common for people to use Facebook or Instagram screenshots of proof, and that's fine, but you want to use a highlighter for those screenshots. Okay, if you just put a page of screenshots, visually, that's going to communicate, wow, you're awesome. Like, lots of people think you're amazing. However, if you highlight a screenshot, they are going to read the highlight first, and then they're going to decide if they actually want to read the testimonial. So it's very, very important that you pull your screenshots in and use a highlighter. Okay, so that's the first way. The second way is to use a call out for the skimmers. Again, remember the almighty skimmer. You can see here, this is this is a testimonial from Amber's, one of Amber's sales page. She's a client of mine. And you can see that what she did was she pulled out the most important part of that testimonial and put it up there, bigger, bolder, pinker, and people made sure that they read that first before reading the entire testimonial. So that's the second way you can do it. The third way is to make sure that you put testimonials in strategic places. We talked about putting the testimonial up at the top of the page, but you should always have a testimonial right near the call to action button. So every time you have a button, you want a testimonial somewhere around that. You also want to match testimonials for where they are in the copy. So for example, if you're at the top of the page and you're talking about the problem, you want a testimonial that talks about how they had a problem and then it got solved. If you have a testimonial about how fast everything got solved, you might want to put that in the spot where, you have talked about how quick the shortcuts are in the bonuses, right? So you want the testimonials as much as possible to follow the story arc of the page, and then create call outs, create bolds, do highlighters so that people can quickly catch that it's like I'm talking and someone's over here going, yeah, 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 she's right. Yeah, 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 she's right. So that's important. Okay, guys. So those are the 8 tweaks. I guarantee if you go and you implement these on your page, you will start to see conversion changes because people will be better able to read the copy. The last thing that I want to share with you guys today is just about your conversions. And I wanted to give you some just quick benchmarks for what kind of traffic you're running. So if you're going to cold traffic, this means you're running your sales page straight from a Facebook ad. You want to make sure that you are getting anywhere from 1 to 2%. It doesn't necessarily mean you'd be profitable, but 1 to 2% is like the lowest you would want to go. Now, as your traffic gets warm, whether it's retargeting ads or people who follow your page, you're looking for 3 to 5% for warm traffic. And for hot traffic, you should expect 5% or more. Now, these are just general benchmarks. Of course, you want to measure against yourself. And one thing I want to share as I close today, and just thank you, Ryan, for having me on the stage, is the 2/3 rule. If you have an audience, my suggestion is that you always send your sales page to your hot audience first. Record what that conversion rate is. A lot of you will notice that your conversion rate could be 10 or 15 or even 20%. The 2/3 rule means that whatever that conversion rate is, when you send it to your hottest, most loyal buyers, cut it in half to 2/3. Okay, really important, because that's probably what cold traffic is going to see. So if we launch an offer to our audience and we see, oh my gosh, it's 20% conversion rate, that's amazing. We can guesstimate that if we use Facebook ads or Instagram ads and we go to cold traffic, we're going to get maybe 5% or 4%, which is still awesome. So we're excited about that. So the 2/3 rule helps really well if you have a big audience. So that's what I have for you guys today. Thank you so much. And just remember that small tweaks on conversion rate make a huge difference. Appreciate